Picture your perfect camping trip. Best friends, incredible scenery, the freedom of the open trail. Now, picture cutting your own tent open from the inside with a knife in the middle of the night. Picture sprinting out into minus 30-degree weather, some of you barefoot, some of you in just your underwear, running away from safety and into pitch black, freezing oblivion. Why did 9 experienced Soviet hikers do exactly that in 1959? Today, folks, we aren't just scratching the surface. We are excavating the entire damn mountain. Buckle up. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident. Before we get to the creepy stuff, we have to understand the vibe. This is the Soviet Union, 1959. The Cold War is frosty. Stalin has been dead for a few years. Khrushchev is in charge. Sputnik is orbiting the Earth. There's a sense of optimism, but also intense rigidity. Hiking in the USSR wasn't just grabbing a backpack and hitting the trail. It was organized. It was bureaucratic. It was a sport. Our crew were students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnic Institute. These weren't casual weekend warriors. They were aiming for a grade 3 certification. At the time, that was the highest difficulty rating in the Soviet Union. To get it, they had to cover 300 kilometers, about 190 miles, across the Northern Urals in dead winter, carrying everything they needed to survive. And the goal was Mount Otorten. Every great expedition needs a fearless leader. Enter Igor Dyatlov. He was only 23, a radio engineering student, but in the hiking world, he was already a legend. He was known as highly capable, very serious, and perhaps a little stubborn. If Igor said they were going left, they went left. He designed a lot of their gear himself, including a specialized stove. He was the glue holding this ambitious trek together. So who was following Igor into the freezer? It was a solid crew of 8 men and 2 women initially. Let's do a roll call. We had Yuri Doroshenko and Georgy Krivonischenko, the jokesters of the group, both capable engineers. There was Zina Kolmogorova, universally loved, incredibly tough, and the heart of the group. She had actually once been romantically linked to Dyatlov, which adds a little spice to the group dynamic, though they were apparently just friends by this point. Rounding out the main group were Rustam Slobodin, quiet, athletic, played the mandolin. Alexander Kolevatov, a nuclear physics student, very methodical. Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles, great name, right? His father was a French communist executed during Stalin's purges. Nikolai was quirky, energetic, and smart. And finally, Ludmila Dubinina, the youngest at 20, a staunch communist, very vocal, but tough as nails. And then there was Semyon Zolotaryov. He's the wild card. He wasn't part of their friend circle. He was much older, 37, a veteran of World War II with a deeply mysterious past. He sort of just latched onto the group at the last minute because he needed the grade 3 certification for a promotion. He had gold teeth, tattoos, and none of the other hikers really knew him. Keep an eye on Semyon. Conspiracy theorists love this guy. All right, gear nerds, gather round. This is where the fun stops and the holy crap begins. If you go hiking today, you have Gore-Tex, GPS, ultralight titanium stoves. These guys, they had heavy canvas tents that weighed a ton when wet. They wore wool sweaters, cotton windbreakers, and fur-lined hats. Their skis were massive wooden planks. They didn't have GPS. They had maps and compasses that didn't always agree with reality. They were heading into conditions that would challenge modern Navy SEALs, basically wearing thrift store clothing. January 23rd, 1959. They depart Sverdlovsk, now Ekaterinburg. The vibe is high. We know this because they took a ton of photos and kept diaries. They're on trains, they're singing songs. Zolotaryov is trying to teach them new tunes he learned in the war. They get kicked off a train at one point for not having tickets, which is just classic student behavior. It feels normal. It feels like an adventure. They take a series of trains, then a truck, finally arriving in Vizhay. This is the end of the line, the last settlement before the true wilderness begins. It's a bleak place, mostly populated by geologists and personnel running the nearby Gulag prison camps. Yeah, don't forget, the Northern Urals were Gulag territory. That's a fun little detail for later. They spend the night, do last-minute prep, and soak up the last bit of warmth. Now we hit a crucial turning point. Remember I said there were 10 hikers? Well, there was one more, Yuri Yudin. At Vizhay, Yuri's sciatic nerve flares up. He's in agony. He tries to push through, but he knows he'll slow them down. Dyatlov makes the call. Yuri has to go back. It's devastating for him. He says goodbye to his friends, takes some photos, and turns around. Yuri Yudin just became the luckiest man in Soviet history. January 28th. Now they are 9. They strap on those giant wooden skis and head into the taiga. The early days of the trek are tough but manageable. They're following trails made by the indigenous Mansi people. They're moving along rivers. The weather is cold, around -15 Celsius, but clear. They're making good time. Their diaries from these days are fascinating. It's a mix of high spirits and petty squabbles. They talk about how hard it is to set up the stove. They tease Luda for being too serious. Zina writes about how beautiful the snow is. They produce a satirical newspaper called The Evening Otorten. They are very much alive, very human, and completely unaware they are walking to their deaths. By January 31st, things start to get real. They've left the river valleys and are moving up into the highlands. They arrive at the edge of the trees and build a cache, a storage spot for extra food and gear they'll pick up on the way back down. They are lightening their loads for the final assault on Otorten. The wind is picking up. The temperature is dropping. The fun part of the trip is officially over. February 1st. This is the day. They start late. They're trying to cross a pass to get to the other side of a mountain called Kholat Syakhl. In the local Mansi language, that translates roughly to Dead Mountain or Mountain of the Dead. Foreshadowing much? The weather is brutal. Blinding snow, fierce winds. Dyatlov, usually so precise, makes a mistake. Because of the low visibility, instead of crossing the pass, they drift westward and start heading up the slope of Kholat Syakhl. They realize their mistake quickly. They are now on an exposed, barren mountain slope as darkness falls. The wind is screaming. Dyatlov has a choice. Option A, ski back down a mile or so to the tree line, where there is shelter from the wind and wood for a fire. Option B, set up camp right here, right now, on the exposed slope. It's suicidal by modern standards. But Dyatlov chooses option B. Why? Maybe he didn't want to lose the altitude they just gained. Maybe he wanted to practice a cold camp on an exposed slope. We'll never know, but this decision sealed their fate. They dig a pit into the snow on the slope to level the ground. They pitch their large, 2-pole canvas tent. It's incredibly tight quarters for 9 people. They take off their wet boots. They lay out their blankets. They are cold, tired, but they seem okay. They begin to cut up some cured pork loins for dinner. It's around 6 or 7 p.m. on February 1st, 1959. They are settling in for the night on the side of the Mountain of the Dead. They are exhausted, but they are together. The storm is raging outside the thin canvas walls. They take their last photo, a blurry shot of them setting up the tent in the blowing snow. And then, silence. What happens in the next few hours is the greatest mystery of the 20th century. February 12th. That was the day Igor Dyatlov was supposed to send a telegram from the village of Vizhay, saying the group had returned. February 12th comes and goes. Silence. At first, no one panics. These are tough kids. Maybe they just got held up by the weather. But as the days tick by, held up starts feeling like lost. By February 20th, the families are screaming for action. The Soviet machine finally grinds into gear. The search is on. The search party is a ragtag mix. You've got fellow students from the Institute, local Mansi hunters who know every inch of these woods, and eventually the heavy hitters, the Soviet military and the police. They've got planes and helicopters buzzing the peaks. It's a needle in a haystack made of ice and rock. Finally, a breakthrough. A student named Mikhail Sherevin spots something on the slope of Kholat Syakhl. It's the tent. But as he gets closer, his blood runs cold. The tent is half buried in snow, but hasn't been crushed by a slide. It's been slashed from the inside. Most of the group's gear, their boots, their coats, their food, is still inside. It's like they left in a state of absolute blind panic. Then they see the footprints, 8 or 9 sets of tracks, made by people wearing only socks, a single boot, or completely barefoot. They aren't running. The tracks show a rhythmic, purposeful walking pace. They're walking down the slope, away from their only source of survival, toward the tree, line a mile away. In -30 degrees. Why? Why walk towards certain death? Following the tracks for about a mile, the searchers reach a massive, ancient cedar tree at the edge of the forest. Underneath it, they find the remains of a small, pathetic fire. And next to it, the first 2 bodies, Yuri Durashenko and Yuri Krivonischenko. They're wearing only their underwear. Their hands are burned. Their knuckles are shredded. Here's a detail that'll keep you up at night. The branches of that cedar tree were snapped off up to 5 meters high. There were traces of skin and blood on the bark. It looked like the hikers had desperately tried to climb the tree. Were they looking for the tent? Or were they trying to get away from something on the ground? Between the cedar tree and the tent, the searchers find 3 more bodies, spaced out as if they were trying to crawl back to the tent one by one. Igor Dyatlov, Zina Kolmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin. Zina is the furthest along. She was fighting for every inch. None of them made it. At this point, the official theory is simple: hypothermia. Case closed, right? Wrong. Wait, that's only 5 bodies. Where are the other 4? The search drags on for 2 more months. The snow begins to melt, and in May, inside a ravine about 75 meters from the cedar tree, they find the rest: Dubinina, Zolotaryov, Thibaut Brignoles, and Kolevatov. And this is where the rational explanation starts to fall apart. The first 5 hikers died of the cold, but the 4 in the ravine, they had horrific internal injuries. Thibaut Brignoles had a fractured skull so severe it looked like he'd been hit by a car. Dubinina and Zolotaryov had massive chest fractures, ribs crushed as if by a high-pressure force. But here's the kicker: there were no external bruises. Their skin was fine, but their bones were shattered. It gets weirder and grosser. Ludmila Dubinina was missing her tongue. Both she and Zolotaryov were missing their eyeballs. Now, some say it was just small animals or decomposition in the water, but the investigator noted the tongue appeared to have been removed at the root. The vibe of the morgue was shifting from tragedy to a horror movie. And let's talk about the clothes. These 4 were better dressed than the others. In fact, they were wearing clothes that belonged to the people who died by the cedar tree. They had cut the clothes off their dead friends to stay warm. It shows they were thinking, surviving, and fighting until the very last second. This wasn't a group that just gave up. The Soviet authorities didn't know what to do. The injuries were too consistent to be a random accident, but there were no footprints of attackers. So, they closed the case with one of the most famous and frustrating sentences in legal history. They concluded the hikers died due to an unknown compelling force. Translated from Soviet speak, we have no idea, and we're done talking about it. So we have a sliced tent, barefoot hikers, crushed chests, missing tongues, and a government that just wants the story to go away. But the story didn't go away. Because while the investigators were packing up, they found one more thing that made everyone's hair stand up: radiation. Why was their clothing radioactive? We'll dig into the secret weapons and the orange orbs in Act 3. The bodies are buried, the files are stamped, but the questions are just getting started. If 9 experienced hikers ran to their deaths, something made them do it. For decades, the world has been trying to find a rational explanation that fits all the pieces of this jagged puzzle. But the problem with the Dyatlov Pass is that every rational theory eventually hits a brick wall. Let's start with the locals. The first suspects were the Mansi people. This was their land. The mountain was Dead Mountain. Initial rumors suggested the hikers had stumbled onto a sacred site and been dealt with by indigenous warriors. The police actually interrogated several Mansi men. But there was a problem. The Mansi were incredibly helpful during the search. And more importantly, there were no footprints other than the hikers. No signs of a struggle. No speed wounds. The Mansi theory went cold faster than the mountain itself. In 2019, the Russian government reopened the case and pointed their finger at a slab avalanche. This is the theory most scientists love. The idea is that the hikers cut into the snow to pitch their tent, weakening the slope. While they slept, a heavy slab of snow slid down, crushing the tent and breaking their ribs while they were still in their sleeping bags. That's why they cut their way out. They were buried and panicking. It sounds perfect, right? Except the slope wasn't that steep. Usually, you need a 30-degree incline for an avalanche. This was about 20. When the searchers found the tent, it wasn't buried under tons of snow. It was just dusted. And if your ribs are crushed by a slab of ice, how do you then walk a mile down a mountain in your socks? The avalanche theory is like a sweater that starts unraveling the moment you pull a loose thread. If it wasn't snow, maybe it was air. Enter the katabatic wind. These are literal gravity winds, super dense, freezing air that rushes down a mountain like an invisible freight train. Imagine a wind so loud and so powerful it sounds like a jet engine and threatens to blow the tent. And you, right off the cliff. In total darkness and a 100 miles per hour freezing gale, you don't think. You just run for the trees. Now we get into the weird science. Ever heard of infrasound? When wind blows over certain mountain shapes, it can create low-frequency sound waves below the range of human hearing. But just because you can't hear it doesn't mean you don't feel it. Infrasound has been proven to cause the hum. It triggers intense nausea, blurred vision, and most importantly, overwhelming irrational panic. Did the mountain itself literally drive them insane for 10 minutes? Remember that radiation we mentioned? This is where the Soviet backdrop gets dark. The hikers were near a secret testing range. That night, other groups of hikers nearby reported seeing glowing orange orbs in the sky over Kholat Syakhl. Some believe the group was caught in the middle of a parachute mine test or a failed missile launch. The blast of a fuel-air bomb would explain the internal injuries without external bruising. It would also explain why the government was so quick to shut the case. But wait, the skeptics say, why would their clothes be radioactive? Well, Kolevatov and Krivonischenko worked in the nuclear industry. Some suggest they were actually KGB plants carrying radioactive samples to a meeting with foreign agents on the mountain. A controlled delivery gone wrong. It sounds like a spy movie, but in 1959 Russia, reality was often weirder than fiction. Then there's the underwear. Why were they half naked? Science has an answer for this one. Paradoxical undressing. When you're in the final stages of hypothermia, your blood vessels dilate, making you feel like you're burning up. People have been found frozen to death in the Arctic, having stripped off every stitch of clothing because they thought they were on fire. It's the cruelest trick the body can play. So, pick your poison. Was it a freak slab of snow? An invisible wind that made them go mad? Or a Soviet missile that turned the mountain into a laboratory? None of these theories explain everything. They all leave a little bit of the mystery untouched. And that's because we haven't looked at the high-strangeness yet. In Act 4, we're going to talk about the Yeti, the aliens, and the final, terrifying reconstruction of their last hour. Don't go anywhere. We've exhausted the rational, and we've poked holes in the official. But the Dyatlov Pass has a way of attracting the strange. When logic fails to explain why 9 people fled into a blizzard, the human mind looks to the shadows. It looks to the things that aren't supposed to exist. It's time to talk about the high-strangeness. The Mansi people have legends of the mink, a forest giant, a Soviet Bigfoot. Remember the Evening O Torton, satirical newspaper the hikers made? One of the headlines they wrote was, "Lately, science has been debating the existence of the Yeti." Was it a joke, or did they see something? Proponents of this theory say a Yeti attack explains the massive chest trauma and the missing tongue, sheer brute force from a creature defending its territory. Then there are the orange orbs. Multiple witnesses, including the military, saw glowing spheres in the sky that night. UFO enthusiasts argue the hikers were victims of an extraterrestrial encounter. Perhaps a craft landed, or the compelling force was an alien technology that caused the hikers to flee in a daze. It's the theory that refuses to die, fueled by the secrecy of the Soviet era. Fast forward to 2021. Researchers from Switzerland used CGI technology, the same stuff used in the movie Frozen, to simulate the snow conditions on Kholat Syakhl. They found that a delayed small-scale avalanche, or a snow slab, could happen on that specific slope. It wouldn't bury them, but it would hit them with the force of a car, breaking ribs and skulls while they lay flat in the tent. Let's piece it together. One final time. It's midnight. The wind is howling. Suddenly, crack! A slab of frozen snow, heavy as lead, slides just a few feet and slams into the tent. Igor, Luda, and Nikolai are hit the hardest. Ribs snap, skulls crack. They are trapped under the canvas, suffocating. They slice the tent to breathe. They drag their wounded friends out. But the wind is 100 miles per hour. They can't fix the tent. If they stay on the ridge, they die in minutes. Dyatlov makes a desperate call. To the woods. They head down the slope in a controlled retreat, supporting the injured. They reach the cedar tree, huddled together, freezing, blind in the dark. At the tree, they realize the fire isn't enough. The two Yuris die first. The others take their clothes to survive. 3 hikers try to crawl back to the tent for supplies. They die on the slope. The last 4 retreat into a ravine to build a snow shelter, but it collapses on them, where the injuries finally take their toll. The silence of the mountain wins. The Dyatlov Pass incident isn't just a ghost story. It's a story about 9 people who loved the outdoors, who loved each other, and who fought with every fiber of their being to survive an unsurvivable night. They weren't just victims, they were explorers. Their names are carved into a monument on that mountain today, a reminder that the wilderness is beautiful, but it is also indifferent. For hours later, and we're still here. Maybe it was an avalanche. Maybe it was the military. Maybe it was something the mountains won't let us see. But one thing is for sure, the Dyatlov 9 will never be forgotten. Thanks for taking this long walk with me. Stay safe, stay curious, and maybe stay off Kholat Syakhl in February.